All right, so this particular video and this particular discussion is tentatively titled Notes Toward an Avant-Garde Poetry and Poetics of REEgREEssion, TRAnsgrEEssion, AggREEssion, REEgREEssion, and/or DigREEssion number 55. And that's 55 as in 2E and 2E as in twice exceptional. And then there's a colon, or a tentative colon, I suppose, in the tentative title, and a subtitle. A few more things I never knew about that dude. And my deep readers, or my deep listeners, or my deep rememberers of my work will perhaps remember and recall that this series, notes toward an avant-garde poetry and poetics of, etc., 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 began as a discussion and kind of self-analysis of both a misremembering and a mishearing I had in a particular piece that Charles Bernstein posted on the internet, in which he filmed Bob Perlman's response to the question, Bob, what do you think about Chelsea as a neighborhood to live in? And I had misremembered, so I had performed two errors in my comprehension of, well, I don't know if the second was really an error. I'm gonna have to restart this one here. That shouldn't be too hard to do. But I had, at least I had made one error, which was misremembering the question as, Bob, what do you think about Chelsea? And then interpreting that question, abstractly and sort of running with it in all the ways that you could imagine what such a question, such an abstract question as, Bob, what do you think about Chelsea, could, possibly mean, in all of the context in which that utterance could present itself as meaning. And then I sort of played out, some of the poetics involved in interpreting, that abstraction. And then I, had, either, looked at the piece again, or recalled that, in fact, that Charles Bernstein asked Bob Perlman not, Bob, what do you think about Chelsea? But in fact, the original question was, what do you think about Chelsea as a neighborhood to live in, right? And I think I addressed, that question somewhere. But I also addressed the fact that I couldn't hear part of Bob Perlman's response, and that he largely, he sort of briefly responded to the question, but shifted gears and became interested in a definition of the avant-garde. And he had either said, well, he had said, one of these things, that he was interested in the avant-garde insofar as it, related to this notion of REEgREEssion, or maybe it was TRAnsgrEEssion or AggREEssion or DigREEssion, and I couldn't hear exactly which of those it might have been. So that's what instigated this particular piece, or this particular series, I suppose, Notes Toward an Avant-Garde Poetry and Poetics of REEgREEssion, TRAnsgrEEssion, AggREEssion, and/or DigREEssion. And I believe it was only after, thinking about Kathy Acker and David Anton's, considerations of her work, and his sort of failure to take into account, what for me is largely the torque of Kathy Acker's work, which is the transgressive aspect, right? Which transgression, you understand, to be manifold in her work, and explains a lot, right? Like it explains the whole, like, mythos of Herbert Marcuse and the sort of misdirection that her autobiographical self-presentations take in relationship to Marcuse and his notion of like there's an expression, the end of the avant-garde. We could say the end of transgressional possibilities, right? And so she has a take on that and plays it out in this feigned autobiography, or feigned biography that she relates regarding being one of his students. In any case, that's all in there somewhere. I think. I mean, the Acker is only in there because I think it was, my reading of David's reading of Kathy Acker that like got me thinking maybe it's transgression that Bob Perlman said. Because I think before I thought it was digression, regression, or aggression, and then only through, later, like considering other possibilities, I added, the transgression. And in any case, So that's the series, and then and the reason that we're looking at this piece and considering it, within this series, notes toward an avant-garde poetry and poetics of regression, transgression, aggression, regression, and or digression, number 55, is let's see if I can find it. I just heard it. No, it's a little too late. Sorry. Okay, so some of the pieces that we've done, the last couple of pieces, are based on hearing, this phrase as I'll fucking slug that dude, and it only just occurred to me that let's go back. Oh, missed it again. I have to go back. Okay, so it just occurred to me, and I don't know why it occurred to me, today, but that that might not be I'll fucking slug that dude, or but in fact might be I'll fucking snub that dude. So the pieces that we've done regarding Sluggo and Nancy could be potentially like a misdirection, and I don't mind the misdirection in any way and taking it along that path. But it does occur to me like that there's a possibility of reading that expression. And let's go back again and see if we can hit it. I keep missing. Oops. All right, so I'll or I'd, like those two are both possible readings, I think. I'll or I'd. Let me see. I think the fucking is pretty accurate. Yeah, fucking is pretty fucking. It's fucking. I'd or I'll, and then I think the clear one is fucking, right? Like as in fucking, and then the word that's in question, the verb, right? The verb in question is whether it's slug or. It's just recently occurred to me that it could be, it's potentially the verb snub, right? So I opened up, my handy and trusty Apple Dictionary, and, just to demonstrate that there are a couple of possibilities for interpreting this verb: rebuff, ignore, or disdainfully. rebuff, ignore, or spurn distastefully. Now the tone, if you go back, let's listen to it again. The tone suggests that there's more aggression and violence in it than rebuffing, ignoring, or spurnfully disdaining. Right? So that's probably what led me to reject, this as a possible, hearing of this verb. To begin with, like that the tone seems to take it in this aggressive and violent direction, right? Like the whole interaction is aggressive and violent. And then the second one doesn't really seem to work. Check the movement of, especially by a rope round around a post. I suppose that that could be performed violently, and it could relate to the content of the tone in this utterance, right? But that particular definition, it seems how to put it, too precise in a way, for this sort of general torrent, right? This emotional torrent, that this expression is generating. So I think those are the reasons that I initially rejected the possibility of this verb in that expression, and perhaps was guided or directed by the context, right, of the tone to select in my hearing the verb slug. But I'm wondering now if there are other possibilities. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it up. I'm going to turn up the volume and see if we can hear anything else that may open up other avenues of exploration of this idea that move us away from Sluggo. And I could have as the subtitle of this video, I could have said a few more things I never knew about Sluggo instead of that dude. But I chose that dude for whatever reason. And I suppose if there's a Snubbo, I'm not familiar with a cartoon character named Snubbo, but I'll look it up and I'll see. And I suppose if there is one, that we can move in that direction as well. And okay, so what I want to do is replay this, and I'll be quiet so that we can actually hear it, and then maybe it'll suggest to us other possibilities. Well, it's still drawing me toward slug, and when I was thinking about it, I thought that snub was a possibility. I'll fucking rebuff, ignore, or spurn disdainfully that dude. But the more I listen to it again and again, the more that I think I was initially correct in being drawn by the tone and the aggression in the communication toward the selection of this verb slug. And but I'm I'm open to possibilities. So I'll do the research and I'll see if there is a Snubbo, and if there is a Snubbo, maybe we'll explore some of those, possible avenues of poetry and poetics in relationship to that, selection, as well as, whatever other creative avenues that that verb, might lend itself to.